I'm John Cook and I'm the miller and owner of Foster's Mill at Swaffham Prior. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the different types of flour that we produce and the grains that we use to produce those flours. So in total we produce 9 different flours here at the mill. That's wholemeal flours, dressed flours and indeed kibbled flours. This is one of our sets of millstones and presently we're milling Malika, which is the variety of wheat that we're using for our wholemeal, white and wheaten meal flours. The Malika comes from Home Farm Wimpole, that's Wimpole Hall near Cambridgeshire. I'll now pick up a sample of the wheat and you can see nice big grains, nice and clean sample of wheat milling away on a nice windy day. We're using the Malika grain to produce 3 types of flour. We're producing what we call Cambridge wholemeal, which you'll see with a green label if you buy the 1.5 kilo bags. We're producing Cambridge white, which will go with a blue label, and we're also producing a wheaten meal, which is a coarse meal. So the grain is ground up into a wholemeal flour, and then for the white flour it's dressed or sieved, which extracts around 65 to 68% of the wholemeal to produce a really nice creamy white flour. There are some particular characteristics of the Malika grain that I'd like to tell you about. The key thing is it doesn't absorb much moisture. So if you're familiar with the hydration of your dough, that's the percentage of water that you're adding to the flour, you need to be hydrating the dough between 60 and 63%. That's significantly less than many recipes or approaches that you're probably used to. So if you're familiar with hydration, just to reiterate, 60 to 63% is what I'd advise. If you're unfamiliar with that, reduce the amount of water by probably between 1/5 and 1/4 and then experiment until you get the right consistency of dough. We're now looking at the Alcor spelt that we get from Manor Farm at Bradnam. Again, a nice clean sample and nice big grains. This spelt has been de-hulled, so the hull, which is the outside coarse protection for the seed, has now been removed. And you can see that the sample is nice and clean. This is really important because if you work with spelt which has been poorly de-hulled, you get large, quite coarse pieces of husk in the flour, which doesn't make a particularly good taste. And we're using that to produce 2 different types of flour. Our organic spelt, which is a wholemeal spelt, and we're also then dressing that or sieving it to produce white spelt. A lovely all-round variety of spelt, a really creamy texture you'll find to the flour, which a lot of our customers comment on. We're now looking at some rye. This is rye grain from Hammond's End Farm at Harpenden. Again, nice clean sample, ready for milling. We're producing 3 types of flour with our rye grains. We're producing rye flour, which is our wholemeal rye, or you might be familiar with the term dark rye. We're also producing a white rye, that's when we're sieving the rye, again to extract about 65% of the dark rye to give a nice clean white rye. And we're also producing a kibbled or cracked rye, which we market as cracked rye, and I can show you that here. You can see the grain is cracked into small pieces, so it's not really a flour, it's a kibbled grain. This is really an interesting flour to use if you want to add a little bit of texture to the bread that you're working with, of course the rye taste. You can also mix this rye grain with water and leave it overnight to soften the grains and then add it into your dough, which will give another additional texture and taste. So a really fun thing to try and to play with.